Hello. This chalk video toy is interesting. It seems to have a life of its own, and the way the light shadow in the background is coming and going makes you go, what's doing that? Oh well, do I care? Now, once again, I was pondering how nice it would be to have something to say when one turned the camera on. That would be so comforting. And so I'm watching that and wondering, is that an attack of mind? What's going on? Things are changing, ever changing. I don't know who and what I am, which is good, because if I ever did, whatever happens next would just show me that I didn't. So, maybe not knowing is the best way to ride the spiral of light up. Who can say? What's to be said? I don't know, my friends. Maybe I don't need to be making videos. I don't know anything. And I truly don't. All that we know in the 3D realm is really only applicable to that. And we're leaving that behind pretty darn quickly. If you look up ascension symptoms online, you get tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of hits. It's amazing that that many people would be recognizing and realizing that so many of the physical signs and things, even just being exhausted or feeling like you need to rest a lot, are ascension related. Ascension just being a word for transcending levels. I don't see it as anything final. It's a transition from one level to the next. And I expect there will be more and future, if you will, ascensions there for us when the next level is transcended, and the next, and the next, and the next. So Alex Collier says the Andromedans don't even call it ascension for sort of that reason. He says they call it upliftment, and they have committees or beings assigned to support that it's a common thing when you find beings moving from one level to the next. So I guess a lot of us are recognizing that that is what we're doing. And I like the way some have put it, when there's the recognition that we're leaving a whole dimension, a whole level behind. And so that means that a lot of its rules and regulations, if you will no longer apply. They will still apply. It's just that we won't be in the realm or the level where they are valid. And so it's a big deal. It's major changing that's going on. And I have no idea what my video camera is doing here, but enjoy the light show. So we're leaving, and I'm just going to ponder out loud here, as I do sometimes. We're leaving the level of time behind. Doesn't mean time doesn't exist anymore. It means it doesn't exist as we understood it, as a limit, as forced linearity, if you will. That aspect of it, when you say all time is now, and by the way, you can also say all space is here, but when you say all time is now, it's concurrent, and I'm living all of my lifetimes right this instant, and they're all equally accessible. that's very different. That's not 3D speak, because in 3D you don't tend to see that. You know, you have your odd deja vu and you know, experience like that, where time seems to fold in on itself, or you know, break the rules for a while, which it never does, is my suspicion. We just don't know all the rules. So we're going to be in a new relationship to time where it won't be limiting. And you can start out by saying, all time is now. And that's a good way to begin to conceptualize conquering that. Well, one of the things that goes with time, in a way, is karma, which is very linear. You know, you do this, you get that. What goes around comes around. That's cyclic. And again, I'm not saying cycles don't happen. We will just, or we do just exist in a different relationship to them, not subject to the lower realms and the way that they work. Things will certainly be easier. Manifestation will be more instant. You get what you think of, which right now, if that was given to everyone on earth, just imagine if everyone on earth was given the ability to have instantly manifest whatever they thought of. Oh my God, look at your own thoughts, you know. And the people that are worried and fearful about Armageddon and war and bad things happening to them, and you know, there are beings that I call accident entities. There are beings that try to create auto accidents, and what you will find is, as you come to an intersection, you will have projected into your awareness possibilities for a wreck or a crash or something like that. And that kind of thing would precipitate. And so, out of mercy, if nothing else, in 3D, we don't have the instant manifestation that will be available. Now, obviously, this would be, if we're transitioning from a this to a that, this would be a good time to become much more aware of thought and to take up the scepter, put on the crown and reign over the mental body, the mental abilities, so that one could take responsibility for what was going through the mind. Okay, just ramblings. And the dog wants in, so ignore if you hear his little scratching at the door in the background. He can wait a few moments. What else is different? I spoke of exiting karma. And it's not that, as I say, karma won't have an effect, it will. But there will be less of us in the realm where karma is most powerful. And we will just exist in different relationship to it. Someone has described that we're moving from karma and relationship via karma to relationship via resonance. What do you hold resonance with? That's what you manifest. That's what you magnetize. That's what you create. And so as your resonance, as your frequency rises, you attract light. Now, you do that in 3D as well. It's just that it's not as instant and it's not as visible. Things are slowed down, more syrupy, more sticky, and not as quick to flash into manifestation here. And again, this is likely a very good thing, considering the things that run through some people's mind. You know, just imagine the guy walking down the street looking at the ladies and thinking, woo woo. And what would be the manifestation there? Come on, what kind of a world do you want to live in? All right? So we have some growing to do, and some much more, I think, of taking responsibility for the self. Our focus has been so outward bound that we've had much less of an awareness of our own being, of what's going on inside. And now, as we do the watch and observe that I'm so fond of, that's been such an instructor for me. We're learning, and we're seeing how our very vision itself is healing. That to see a thing sometimes is all that's required, because on the seeing, there's the resolution within the being to either choose or not choose that, and to go on in that way. And how funny it is, too, the way the inside and the outside are getting mixed up. At least they are for me. And I think for anyone, once we discover in physics the observation problem, where there's no such thing as an objective observer of an experiment, you know, the experiment has to kind of go on by itself without being looked in upon at all, or the looking collapses the wave function and it mucks up the experiment. Okay? Dimitri Halley is good for this, you know, not the scientific aspect of it, but the psychological aspect of you are affecting that which you observe. I think that's the bottom line there. We affect that which we observe, and we're even talking about supposedly inanimate objects and so on, things that don't have a will of their own, as well as things that do. So we affect everything we look at. Is that not the bottom line? You have an effect on everything that you look at. You are inextricably bound together with it. You are entangled. Isn't that grand? Isn't that crazy? Isn't that wild? I mean, there is such room for such joyful meditation in the new levels to which we're being taken, we're being carried along. It becomes less like a doing all the time and more like a being done. You know, things are just being done, and we're just the witness, the observer, watching it occur, even though from the outside it would look to others as if we're doing the doing. But they're projecting their way of understanding things upon us. And so what they're seeing is not what we're experiencing, a la the observation problem. I mean, another aspect of the observation problem, which would be projection. This is why we so often see God as a human being on a cloud, you know, with a long white beard as symbol of wisdom and so on. This is, so what's the big word for it? I have forgotten. But there's a nice big word that just says we're projecting our image on God. Anthropomorphic, I think. Anthropomorphizing, what the heck ever. You know, we're seeing ourselves in that. And so someone who looks at you doesn't see you. They see their own self, their own way of seeing layered upon you as if you were that. And so in the midst of all of this, as we begin to see these things, the result for me, what I see, is that each one must stand stronger in their own divinity, under their own vine and fig tree, within their own heart, however you want to structure that. Each one must be even more the fullness of self, because we will be seen in all sorts of different ways by people around us, but we mustn't let that limit us, control us, guide or direct us even. You know, we have to be the strength that knows that, hey, wait a minute, I know best how to be me. I don't need somebody else telling me how to be me. And there's a letting go that happens too, because you realize if they see you in a certain way, you may or may not be able to reach them. There are people that simply, due to who and what they are and where they are in their own process, will not be able to see you in your new space. And that's not your fault, and that's not their fault. That's just the physics of things. And so we want to apply our will in a 3D way that as we rise higher in frequency, we realize isn't applicable. Things just don't work that way. Other people get to be in charge of their own life and their way of being and seeing. And we can't force an understanding on anyone. As much as we might like to, as much as we might fear the loss of a certain relationship or what the way the relationship worked, we might not want to part from someone, and we might see that our growth and development is going off in a direction that, for the moment at least, the other party cannot follow along. And so we see where we have ties and things that have to be cut. They weren't real in the first place. We have strings and strands extending from ourselves, reaching out into the auric force field of others that are not necessarily healthy for you or for them. And we have a lot of, let's see, there's a word for the kind of relationship, codependence going on. And I think we have to realize at a certain point, or it just comes to us, we do realize that we have some unhealthy relationships, and what we've done is we've used the observation problem to project ourselves onto another, to project our way of seeing, and maybe our way of seeing wasn't so accurate. And so we have to let go of that. Maybe our way of seeing was even holding the other one down in certain ways, you know. There's a lot of letting go that really accelerates the ascension process. The more that we can be comfortable in the midst of this, the more we can empty the cup, the better and the easier the ride. It has enough difficulties and challenges built into it without us clinging and grasping onto things that we must simply let go of, or they will hold us down. I mean, you can do what you want to. There's nobody and nothing forcing you into any mode of being or behavior or thought or frequency or what. But it's a choosing between levels, densities, and dimensions. And there are certain things native to the higher dimensions that if we see that and if we want that, will cause us to see and let go of other things that hold us back. So how is that for a rambling thing? You never know what's going to come out. See you again soon.